The political scene just exploded. Minutes before a major UK-EU summit was set to begin, Nigel Farage pulled a move that shocked the entire government. He blocked it. And within the hour, Prime Minister Keir Starmer was seen rushing into an urgent meeting with King Charles. Sources say Starmer was furious, some even say he lost control. What could possibly push the Prime Minister to the brink like that? And what role did the King play in this unexpected royal intervention? The answers are coming, and they could change the UK's path forever. Early this morning, all eyes were on the highly anticipated UK-EU summit scheduled to take place in central London. It was supposed to mark a new era of diplomatic ties between Britain and the European Union. Prime Minister Keir Starmer had been preparing for weeks, hoping to secure new trade deals and rebuild broken trust with EU leaders. The media was ready. The red carpets were rolled out, and EU officials were already in the capital. But within minutes, the entire plan collapsed. According to insider sources, Nigel Farage, now holding a surprising amount of political influence due to recent shifts in Parliament, filed an emergency objection that legally stalled the summit. His team claimed the summit was unconstitutional and lacked proper parliamentary approval. It wasn't just a political move, it was a direct challenge to Starmer's leadership. As officials scrambled to confirm what was happening, word spread that Farage's last-minute action had frozen all forward motion. The UK-EU summit was halted on the spot. What followed was pure chaos. Staff at 10 Downing Street went into lockdown mode. Aides were seen rushing in and out of meetings. Senior ministers were pulled from other duties, and phone lines with Brussels lit up non-stop. One anonymous source claimed it was like a fire drill, only real, and much worse. And at the center of it all was Starmer, visibly shaken, red-faced, and barely able to hide his anger, but the biggest shock was yet to come. As tensions rose, the Prime Minister requested, and received, an urgent audience with King Charles. Within the hour, Starmer was spotted entering Buckingham Palace. The move stunned political observers. It's rare for a prime minister to meet the monarch so suddenly, especially over a political roadblock. This wasn't just protocol, it was desperation. Reports say the meeting lasted nearly 45 minutes behind closed doors. No official statement has been released yet, but multiple insiders suggest Starmer was seeking royal backing to override Farage's obstruction. Others believe the prime minister wanted reassurance, some form of moral authority, from the king, to keep his EU plans alive. Still, others suspect Starmer simply needed to vent before the pressure overwhelmed him. As news of the royal meeting spread, social media erupted. Hashtags like #Starmer meltdown and #Farage blocks summit trended within minutes. Public reactions were split. Some praised Farage for standing up to what they called backdoor EU deals, while others condemned the interference as reckless and anti-democratic. But all agreed on one thing: the UK had just entered a new kind of political crisis. For Keir Starmer, this was not just an embarrassing moment, it was a serious blow to his authority. And for Nigel Farage, it was proof that he still held power capable of shaking the system. But the real question now is, what did the king say? And how will this all play out in the next 24 hours? Nigel Farage's move wasn't just bold, it was strategic. For months, he had been warning that Prime Minister Starmer's planned UK-EU summit was a backdoor return to Brussels. Farage claimed that the public was being misled, that the summit would quietly reintroduce rules and agreements voters had already rejected with Brexit. So when the opportunity came to halt it, he acted fast, and with surgical precision. Sources close to Farage say he had been preparing this legal blockade for weeks, waiting for the right moment to strike. That moment came just hours before the summit began, when his team filed a formal parliamentary challenge stating that the Prime Minister had not followed correct democratic procedures. According to the motion, the government was required to hold a parliamentary vote before making any binding discussions with the EU. That vote never happened. The claim was enough to force an immediate suspension of the summit. Legally, it may hold water. Politically, it was explosive. Farage's team issued a public statement saying, "This summit threatens Britain's sovereignty. We will not stand by while this government tries to sneak the UK back into the EU's grip." Supporters of Farage hailed him as a defender of Brexit values. Protesters even gathered outside Westminster waving Union Jack flags and chanting, "No return to Brussels." But critics say this was never about procedure, it was about power. Farage's influence has been growing rapidly, especially after recent by-election victories and renewed popularity in working-class areas. Though he doesn't hold a traditional ministerial position, his voice echoes loudly in Parliament and in public debates. Some now view him as the unofficial leader of Britain's right-wing populist movement, capable of destabilizing Starmer's administration with a single move. Insiders say this block was also a message to Starmer: Farage won't be ignored. Since Brexit, the Labour Party has taken a more cooperative tone with Europe. Starmer promised that while Brexit was final, future relations could still improve. That message appealed to moderate voters, but enraged hardline Brexiteers. Farage accused the Labour government of trying to reverse Brexit in slow motion. And this summit, in his eyes, was the tipping point. To make things more intense, Farage wasn't acting alone. He reportedly received quiet backing from a group of Eurosceptic Conservative MPs who also believed the summit was going too far, too fast. Their support helped give his move more political weight and send a clear message to the Starmer administration: opposition is not limited to fringe voices. Farage has also been vocal about concerns over economic and legal ties that could come from renewed EU talks. He warned that agreements made at this summit might bring the UK under EU rules on trade, environment, or even migration. His critics say he's exaggerating. His supporters say he's the only one telling the truth. Meanwhile, the EU has remained mostly silent. Officials in Brussels expressed surprise at the summit's sudden halt and stated that they hope for clarity from the British government. Some insiders say the EU is growing tired of the UK's internal drama, while others worry this latest twist shows just how divided British politics has become. In just a few hours, Farage managed to stop a high-level international meeting, spark a royal intervention, and send the Prime Minister scrambling. Whether this was a patriotic stand or a dangerous stunt depends on who you ask. But one thing is clear: Nigel Farage isn't just back in the game. He might be rewriting the rules. What happened behind palace walls remains a mystery, but insiders say it was anything but calm. When Keir Starmer was seen entering Buckingham Palace just after Farage blocked the summit, many assumed it was a symbolic meeting. But sources close to the Prime Minister now reveal it was far more intense than anyone expected. Starmer, furious and under pressure, had just suffered the most public embarrassment of his leadership. The UK-EU summit was meant to be a proud moment, a symbol of Britain reconnecting with Europe on its own terms. Instead, the summit was shattered by a single parliamentary motion, and Starmer was forced to seek help from the only figure who could provide constitutional cover, the King. According to those briefed on the meeting, Starmer didn't hold back. He reportedly described Farage's move as a deliberate act of sabotage, and pleaded with the King to help prevent further political instability. Starmer is said to have expressed fears that the incident could damage the UK's global image and even spark a diplomatic crisis with EU leaders who had flown in for the summit. One aide described the mood in the room as tense, strained, and desperate. But the King's position in modern British politics is largely symbolic. He listens. He advises, but he doesn't command. That left Starmer in a difficult spot. He couldn't ask the monarch to override Parliament, but he could ask him to issue a message of unity or calm, a royal statement that could cool the boiling tensions. Whether the King agreed to do so is still unclear. What we do know is that the meeting lasted longer than usual. 45 minutes behind closed doors, with no press present and no official statement released afterward. A palace spokesperson simply said, "His Majesty met the Prime Minister this morning to discuss ongoing national matters." That's it. No confirmation of what was said. No mention of Farage. But insiders suggest the monarch offered what little help he could, mainly advising patience, stability, and public reassurance. Meanwhile, Starmer's reaction to the day's events didn't end at the palace gates. Back at Downing Street, staff say the Prime Minister was visibly shaken, pacing the halls, and raising his voice at senior advisors. One source who witnessed the private meetings later said he was livid. This wasn't just politics, it felt personal. Reports claim Starmer demanded immediate legal review of Farage's challenge, and ordered communications teams to prepare emergency public messaging. The meltdown, though behind closed doors, quickly became public knowledge. Whispers of the Prime Minister, losing his cool, began spreading through political circles. By afternoon, media outlets were quoting anonymous MPs saying the government was in crisis mode. The damage control wasn't working. The public now had two competing images, Farage as the bold patriot defending sovereignty, and Starmer as the shaken leader caught off guard and cornered. Some even questioned why the Prime Minister involved the King at all. Was it necessary? Or did it show weakness? Critics on the right said Starmer panicked and dragged the monarchy into politics. Others on the left defended him, arguing that the situation was serious enough to warrant royal attention. What made the moment more dramatic was the king's silence. By protocol, he remains neutral. But the lack of a firm statement left many wondering, did the monarch quietly support Farage's objections? Or was he simply respecting his limited role? Whatever the answer, the royal meeting added a whole new layer to the chaos, a symbolic reminder that even in modern times, the crown still sits at the heart of British power. With the summit blocked, Parliament split, and the Prime Minister under fire, one question hangs heavy in the air: is this a passing political flare-up, or the beginning of a full-scale leadership crisis? Britain is now staring down a moment of serious uncertainty. With the UK-EU summit blocked, the Prime Minister shaken, and Nigel Farage riding a fresh wave of political momentum, the big question remains: what happens next? Is this just a momentary setback for Starmer's government, or are we witnessing the early stages of a national political shift? First, the fate of the summit itself. As of now, there is no clear rescheduled date. EU leaders who had already arrived in London returned to their hotels or flew home quietly. According to reports from Brussels, many were stunned by the disruption. One anonymous EU diplomat told the press, "This is not how diplomacy works. We were invited in good faith. To be told at the last minute that the UK can't proceed, it's offensive." The incident has put major strain on already delicate EU-UK relations. The Foreign Office is now scrambling to mend fences. Behind the scenes, officials are making private calls to EU counterparts, trying to assure them that this was a temporary political issue, not a collapse of intent. But the damage may already be done. Some EU representatives have stated they will not return until the UK provides official clarity on its direction and internal unity. Meanwhile, inside the UK, pressure is building. Starmer is facing criticism, not just from his opponents, but from within his own party. Several Labour MPs are reportedly furious that the summit was allowed to proceed without a stronger legal foundation. One MP called it a clear failure in preparation. Others fear that Starmer's decision to involve the king may have backfired, painting him as weak and desperate. Across the aisle, Farage is celebrating. His supporters are calling this a turning point in British politics. A wave of social media posts, rallies, and speeches has followed his successful block. Farage himself gave a fiery statement outside Parliament, saying, "We've sent a message today, not just to the EU, but to anyone in government who thinks they can go against the will of the people. We took our country back once. We will do it again, if we have to." The energy around Farage is growing. His influence, once seen as fading after Brexit, has now returned stronger than many expected. There are rumors of new alliances forming between Farage's movement and hardline Tory MPs, aimed at forcing new debates, blocking further EU discussions, and even calling for early elections if Starmer appears too weak to govern. And then there's the public. Polls taken within 24 hours of the summit's collapse show a deep divide. While 42% support Farage's decision to block the summit, another 44% believe it harmed the UK's global image. A small but growing number of voters, especially younger ones, say they are losing faith in both major parties and want a new direction entirely. In the middle of all this, King Charles remains silent. As expected, the palace has not released any follow-up comments. But behind the scenes, constitutional experts are debating whether the monarchy's symbolic role is becoming more active than previously imagined. The fact that Starmer felt the need to consult the king during a political crisis has sparked new questions about how far royal influence might extend in moments of national disruption. For Keir Starmer, the path forward is complicated. He must now rebuild political support, restore diplomatic trust with the EU, and reassert his authority domestically. He is expected to address Parliament within the next 48 hours, and many see that speech as make or break. Will he double down on his agenda? Or will he bend under pressure and shift direction? Meanwhile, Farage isn't slowing down. His next move remains unknown, but one thing is certain: he has reinserted himself into the center of British politics in a dramatic way. With a single parliamentary maneuver, he changed the course of international negotiations, triggered a royal meeting, and threw the Prime Minister into crisis. What started as a planned diplomatic summit has now become a national political reckoning. The UK stands at a crossroads between renewed international cooperation and rising nationalist resistance. And the next decision, whether by the Prime Minister, the King, or the people, could shape the nation's future for years to come.